The 5th and final season of The Bear is out. So today on The Chef's Cut, we are giving you a real culinary perspective on how it all came together. I thought it was a pretty realistic portrayal in a day in a restaurant. What annoyed Joe the most about this season?
Those kitchens where everyone calls everyone chef.
And has the show helped evolve the image of a chef? If you're not tall, white, male, and have tattoos, you don't fit their stereotype. Chef's Cut Nation, you know what time it is. Please, we need you to take 10 seconds of your day to rate and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps.
We are talking about The Bear. And spoiler alert, we are going through the whole season, the whole Bear enchilada, if you will. So If you haven't watched the whole season yet, save this one for later. Finish the season, come back to this one. But this is your last and final warning that if you haven't seen it yet, we're talking about all of it. I take no responsibility after this statement for ruining it for you if I do. Or if
I definitely went on a
binge,
so I don't know about other people if you're able to do one episode at a time, but I went all 8.
You know, get right into it, right? This last season takes place over one day, right?
Right.
Like there's flashbacks and all that, but I think like when something's shot like that, it's really hard to not watch it in succession.
Yes, exactly. Because you feel like there's no completion yet until you get to the end of it. It's like the show The Pit, which is apparently like a very realistic portrayal of what goes on in like an emergency room and with healthcare workers.
Mm-hmm.
And remember that show 24, Kiefer Sutherland back in the day?
Where
it's like every episode is...
I mean, it was kind of like that. They had the clock going. You know what I mean? It's just like at no point was like, you know, they were like looking for terrorists.
Yeah,
but,
and so
you know, like,
food is not as serious, but you know, it's we treat it like it is.
Right. Well, they certainly try to make it seem so on the back.
And it's cool because, you know, you're following the course of the day and you feel totally vested in it. So I think shooting it that way, especially for the last season, was great. It was a good call, and it did have all those flashbacks, which kept the context going, and it made it feel like it was expanded beyond the day, but it really was just one service.
What I liked about it is I like the idea of trying to explain to people like how much actually happens in a day in a restaurant.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And how much just like everything affects the restaurant, you know, and you and I have talked about before how restaurants are just, we're kind of a lightning rod for anything. We get affected by anything that happens in a city and an economy like instantly. Yeah. It's not like, oh, this is, you know, going to affect us in 6 months. It's like, this is going to affect us right now. Yeah. You know what I mean? It starts raining. It gets too hot. It gets too cold. It gets too whatever. It's a problem.
Yep. 100%.
You know, as somebody who spent the last week in Chicago where it was way too hot last week dealing with, you know, coolers, HVAC, everything under the sun. You know, this episode, like kicking off with, oh, we're dealing with a rainstorm of rainstorms. I'm like, oof.
Yep. You know it. You know it. No, it's like you're either your walk-ins are going to go down. The air conditioning is going to go down because all these systems are like pumping on overdrive. Something is going to go on the fritz. Did you ever have a pipe burst like that? Like a flood like that?
I had a pipe burst and I got screamed at for it by my chef. Serious? I was a sous chef at a place. It was one of the coldest days of Chicago history. It was -40 with the wind chill. Oof. And the pipes burst in the back room. And the chef came in and screamed at me and told me, how could I let that happen?
That's wild.
Yeah, I heard them go off during service. They went off. It sounded, you know, like a pipe bomb. Like they blew up. They went, poof. Yeah. So, you know, we've been down that road. So the idea of like, you know, I think sometimes when people watch this, they're like, oh, this is so like extra. It's so that. It's like,
it's
that
totally
to me is
realistic.
That to me is the realistic. You know what I mean? You know, transforming a beef shop into a tasting menu restaurant. That's, you know,
that was a bigger stretch.
All like ridiculous. But it's like, you know, the part where it's like, you know, the one guy falls through the roof.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I feel this so hard. And the idea of like, they're like, every contractor they're talking to is like, can't get here till tomorrow. Can't get here till tomorrow. Because that's it. That is it every day. Because your problems, like our problems are like 4 p.m. problems. They're not usually 6 a.m. problems. Yeah. And at 4 p.m., There's not a lot of people to solve those problems.
Yep.
And as, chef, restaurant owner, whatever you may be, all of a sudden you're like, well, what are we going to do for now?
Mm-hmm. I thought it was a pretty realistic portrayal of what goes on in a day in a restaurant. This can go wrong. Deliveries are messed up. Somebody doesn't show up. They had 3 servers quit or something like that. Like, it's all these things happen, and they don't happen one issue one day. These issues happen together usually, and you're trying to run around with your head on fire, trying to, put out smaller fires to get the day going and keep things on track.
The magic of restaurants is that we deal with all of this chaos, right? We deal with, the building, the people, somebody quits, somebody tells everybody they quit that you told not to tell everybody that you're quitting.
Right.
And you're like, bro, come on. You couldn't wait till after service. Like, oh, I'm sorry. Like all this shit is like all in a day's work. And then, hey, come 5:00, it's service time. So all that stuff that just happened doesn't matter because the doors are still opening and we got to figure that out. And I think the magic of this season is showing that dance of like, shit's going to hit the fan. And then that fan is going to fall off the ceiling and crash into the floor and go through the floor.
Yep.
And after all that happens, you still have to work service and make sure nobody realizes that there was ever even a fan there to begin with.
So in season 4, the clock ran out. They ran out of money. The uncle went broke, wasn't funding it anymore, going to try to sell the building. Like, there's all these things with the clock running out. So it lost the urgency of that crunch, the money crunch, the time crunch, but it didn't lose any of the urgency of service. So it kept that fidelity to what it's like to be in service, where you're like, there's a thunderstorm and all of our early tables are running late. Are they going to show up? Is anybody going to show up at all?
Right.
We don't know. But then all of a sudden, 10 tables walk through the door in a 5-minute period. It's you are cranking. And so it's like, that to me was such an accurate portrayal of like the sense of urgency. Like, you hurry up, you're pushing all day, and then you hurry up and wait.
Hurry up and wait.
And wait for the guests, wait for the guests to sit down, wait for the guests to get water and wine, and you can start firing food. And then you're just still fucking waiting. It's like,
right. And you're trying to rip through it, and the overbooked and waiting for tables to get up. And it's like, and anybody who's worked in anywhere where you have weather, like rain is a nightmare. And I think that was like one of the best things in that episode too, or the season. It's like all like one big episode in my mind. Was the season was like the rain, because it's like, that is the thing, you see every time. Your first turn is going to show up late. And then also nobody's going to want to get up.
Yep. Because it's raining outside and nobody's in a rush to get back out into the rain.
And your second turn is going to show up early because it's raining and they think it's going to take them much longer to get there.
Yes.
So now your second turn's early, but your first turn's running behind, and none of these people care nor understand.
Right.
That like, hey, I need your table back, and you being late does not change what time the table coming in behind you is coming.
Yep. And I feel like since COVID, when people gave those time restrictions, now there's a much more like socially acceptable thing of like, hey guys, really sorry, we're coming to the end of the 2.5 hours. As you saw, when you booked the reservation, we needed the table back. But fine dining restaurants, you still don't want to do that because it's still kind of like, you don't want to put that on the guest.
Right.
So
like
I
in
can
a fine
see them
dining
not doing
restaurant, you can't really do it. In regular restaurants, I feel like it is commonplace. You could say that. Be like, hey, we have another table behind you. And it's like, okay, that's fair. That's the expectation, right?
So did you think that was realistic? Like how Richie was bringing the tables into the kitchen and staging stuff outside and sending people for dessert to try to clear the tables. Like, was that realistic to you?
Absolutely. We used to do shit like that all the time. It was like, all right, we got to get this table up. Like, what can we think of? What we used to do is like, bringing people to the kitchen. Like at Piaggio, we had that big pass in the dining room. So we used to call it a tap. We'd be like, all right, bring them by for a tap. It'll buy us 10 minutes. And it was a toast at the pass. So like, kind of like they were doing where it's like when he's walking them in and he's talking to him because he doesn't have the table ready yet. If I was hurting on the table, I would bring the two people to the pass where I was expediting. If we would pour champagne for him, I'd pour a little glass of champagne for me. I'd cheers them. I'd welcome them in. I get to see the kitchen. Like, oh, wow, look at this. So it's like we used to do that stuff all the time.
Okay. To me, that was like a crafty way. Throwing the party outside, I was like, now that's a commitment to it. But I guess when you have so many tables running late, you're pretty much trying to turn the whole dining room. So I thought that was really cool. And it really showed the growth and the problem solving of the front of house on the show. And I think like in season 5, there was so much of that from everybody. Like, obviously, one of my favorites is Tina. Like, I'm a Tina fan. I love Tina. Like, she's that quiet power in a restaurant that everybody looks to for like that moment of somebody's not freaking out.
Yeah.
Never. Even if she's not sure if she's got something under control or something, but she's just always, here's what I know. Here's where we're at. We're going to get through this. She's not capitulating. She's not going back and forth. She's not freaking out either. It's like she, to me, is like the most steady character throughout the whole show while still growing and evolving at the same time.
Right. Those people who you're just like, this person's like not just kitchen hard, they're life hard.
Yeah.
I think always keeps everyone on their toes of like, listen, don't start bitching about some like bullshit fine dining work shit to like them.
Yes.
Like they've lived.
Right.
Like you're 23. And like you're upset because somebody took your favorite 9-pan.
Right. Like it was funny when the sister was, upset about having to leave her baby all the time. And that's a real thing that people in hospitality and people who work crazy hours in any job know. It's like, I don't see my kids. They're in bed by the time I get home. Is what I'm doing worth it? And Tina told the sister on that episode, like, she's never gonna get it like that. But you being at home and pissed off is worse than you not being there and making the most of your time when you are together.
Right. And that was, I thought that was such a good line. It was such a good point. The idea of like, where she's like, yeah, she's not going to care if you're working hard and you know what I mean? If you're this or that, whatever, she only cares about the time, but she's also, you know what I mean? If you're home and you're regretting being home, like she will definitely feel that. And it was like,
right.
Yeah. Like that is like, but that's like also like people are like, oh, like if you don't think you're getting kitchen wisdom like that, you're so wrong. Like that's like, you know what I mean? Like most of the things I've learned in life are from, you know what I mean, the Tinas who I've crossed paths with over the years of like, you're worrying about the wrong shit, kid.
Right. I love the Tinas of this industry. They are like the unsung heroes of it. I want to ask you, Joe, because Chicago is one of those cities that has such a wide swath of Michelin-starred restaurants, from casual to fine dining, different types of cuisines, different types of atmosphere and vibe. So they got, at the end of it, the person that we thought was the Michelin reviewer was not the Michelin reviewer. It turns out the Michelin reviewer had been there months before, back in like season 4.
Yeah.
So they got the call finally at the end of season 5. They got 2 stars right off the bat. Did you think that was realistic for them to get 2 stars on their first review in Chicago? Could you see that as
this
a
is
Michelin
the
star?
thing, like in Chicago, like that style of food, the style of things they were doing. No, don't think so. I don't think so. That's just not what I'm saying. I mean, Alinea is a 2-star now.
That's a good point. Holy shit. Yeah.
So
I think they would be a really solid 1.
You're telling me that place is apples to apples with Alinea. Kasama is a 2-star now. So you're saying, and I mean, obviously this is a made up restaurant that doesn't exist and we've never eaten the food. We will never eat the food. And we are like chopping it up about absolute insanity here. But that being said, knee-jerk reaction out the gate, that's a 1. You know what I mean? Like for how they grade, seemingly.
Right.
It's like that would be a 1 out the gate. A 2 out the gate is like you're a 3. You're trying to be a 3.
Right.
And we're giving you a 2 because we're not going to give you 3 out the gate. You know what I mean? You're a Grace. You're an Alinea. You're a Smith. So we're going to give you 2 and make you work for 3.
Right.
Where it's like, nobody really gets, like, it's usually not like you get 2 and you stay at 2. A 2 is like you are going for 3. And we're acknowledging the fact that you are trying to be a 3-star restaurant by giving you 2 and saying, keep going. In my mind, that's how I have always seen it in the past when the 2 Michelin stars you know, in the past of Chicago, in the history of Chicago. Whereas one says you're elite, you live in rarefied air, you are one of the best restaurants in the city for this type of thing. You're a 1 Michelin star restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
If you're 2, you're on the road to 3. Because they used to always say back in the day in Chicago too, like 2 was the kiss of death.
Oh shit!
Like 2 was no man's land. Because like 1, you were like really, really good, but you were kind of still approachable, right? You might still have an a la carte menu. You're kind of an old stalwart. You're a Boca, you're a Blackbird, you're a Spiaggia, you're a Sepia. But if you were in 2, you know, you weren't 3. So you didn't have the full international acclaim. You didn't have people flying all over the world to come eat at your spot. So it's like you were living in this middle ground of like, you know, you were
operating at super high cost.
Right. Operating at super high cost. You weren't as busy as a 3, and you're probably not as busy as a 1 because you're not as approachable. So you're not doing the covers of a 1 and you're not doing the covers of a 3. So you're kind of stuck in the middle. So it was like a lot of times, like over the years when stars first started coming out, a lot of the 2s were like, you're like, I don't know if we're going to be here next year.
Yeah, I really thought it would have been more realistic if they came in at like a 1 with the we could see you going to 2 stars in the next year or 2. Like that was what I expected. To see them get 2, I was like, whoa, okay. You know, to me, that was a little bit of like the play up of the TV effect. Right. And taking a moment to let it sink in. You know, it's one of those things like as a chef, I don't think, you know, people say, I don't care because if you don't get it, you don't want to be disappointed. But then when you get it, you have that emotional response like we saw with Sydney and Carmy, like, you know, having that hug and that moment of like, what we've done was for something. It's like getting a pat on the back. It's like the recognition for all the blood, sweat, and tears that everybody has put in.
Right. It's a validation. And I think you and I have said it, but like, you can't get all your validation from outside. You have to find that internally. And I think that's the point of Carmy, right? Is that you can give him all the outside validation in the world and none of it's going to make him happy. And that's why he has to leave. But, you know, like having one of those to like hang your hat on for the team, it's cool and it's fun and exciting. And, you know, like, you know, and I think it also though speaks to like how unhinged you and I are as like humans and chefs that we're like, I don't know if it's 2. You know what I mean? Like, because like in my mind, I'm like, you know, I'm like this, and I keep having to remind myself, like, this restaurant does not exist.
It's not real.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not real.
It feels real. But I'm like looking at the food and like
everything in me is like, you're telling me this place is as good as Kasama right now, out the gate. Like, if you're telling me it's, you know, it goes 1 for 1 for them where they started, but not a few years in, not 5 years in Kasama. There's no way they're that good right now. And then I'm like, but that's a crazy argument because that's not a real place. One of my favorite parts of this season is when they bring the people back to the kitchen.
Oh, the tables that wouldn't leave.
It's and it's the guy, the actor's name is Brad Boris, I think.
The guy who's like, yes, chef.
Yeah,
chef.
yeah. So he's
rolling
like
the towels.
That guy's like he's a Chicago legend. He's a Second City legend. He's been in a bunch of stuff. He's a really funny guy. He's come into the restaurant a couple of times. I've met him. Super, super nice. When he's in there, like the yes chef, and he like looks at the tape and he's like, oh, Fred's Laundry. And it's like the funniest thing to me about that is like that dude, like that diner who's like that exists especially because of the bear. You know what I mean? Like in real life, the only real thing for that, the first thing he would have said when he walked into that kitchen would have been like, oh my God, this is just like the bear.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that would have been the only like funniest thing they could have ever done is if he would have walked to the kitchen and be like, it's just
that
like
would have been awesome if they had said, holy shit, this is just like the bear. Oh my God, they should missed opportunity.
You know what I mean? Because that is what everyone says now who sits up at a chef's counter, who sits at, you know what I mean, up by the kitchens at any of my restaurants. You'll just inevitably I'll be walking by and you'll hear, it's just like the bear. They're all
so that's so funny
they're
because
all like calling and yelling stuff and it's like, yes, chef. You know, I'm like, oh my God.
So I feel like the people like that existed for such a long time, but it was a little more cultish. It was more like the people who could afford to travel around to the Michelin restaurants and read the cookbooks. And they saw some of those like niche documentaries like Chasing Stars or like the Paul Lee brands.
Yes. They had all the signed menus.
Yep.
And you know what I mean? They would talk to you about, you know, signature dishes at these places, right? They would come in and those people would
so the bear just really broadened it to a bigger audience. But those people were already, do you remember that movie, The Menu? That was
I
like
never
a
watched
horror
that.
film. Oh, I watched it like 3 times on the same flight. It was so good. So there was this guy who was the same way. He's explaining to his date on their little boat ride out to the restaurant that picks you up at the dock, and you have like a 30 out to the island where the restaurant is. And he's explaining to her as they bring this oyster with this foam and this air and this garnish and this. And he's like, after they explain it, he's then explaining everything again to his date and like, breathe it in. You really get the salinity of the oyster with the citrus from the it's just like the most but those people are so real, and it's not a bad thing. It's just hilarious.
It's not a bad thing. It is just really, really funny, and I feel like the Bear has created so many more of those people where it's like, and it's great. I think like people getting interested in what we do is awesome. People, you know, wanting to sit at a kitchen counter and see the chefs working. People realizing like how much work it is, how hard it is, like how much these people care. So I think that giving people context and giving them a view of like what really goes into it is fun. But I was like, that is, and I mean, like Brad does such a good job. He's hilarious. You know what I mean? Like he's so, you know, he's like, I'm going to roll one and then you watch and then you guys can hop in. And they're like,
I didn't see anybody hop in on that at all.
He calls for hands at one point and said, he's like, don't, you can't say that.
Please,
like,
please don't.
Sorry, chef. But I will say it also leads into one of the things that drives me absolutely bananas about this show. And it's not the show's fault. It is an industry thing that drives me out of my mind. And I don't know how you feel about this. I don't know if we've ever talked about this.
Tell me.
The idea of those kitchens where everyone calls everyone chef.
Oh.
Drives me out of my fucking mind. And probably not for the reason you think. I'm going to tell you that much. Because, you know, like, it's not one of those things of like, you're not a chef. You can call you chef. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. What I don't like is it's super fucking annoying. Like when I'm running a pass and if everyone's just like, chef, 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 it's like being in a grocery store and everyone's yelling mom or everyone's yelling dad. It's like, which mom, which dad, who do you belong to? You know, you don't
know the sound of your kid's voice? No, I'm joking.
Yeah, I mean, I do, but a lot of kids sound like them. It's like, use each other's names so everybody knows who everyone's talking to. If you want to address somebody by station, fine. Hey, Garmo, grab me a bread. But like for me, it drives me crazy because I'm always like, whoever at the pass is chef. And it's just, and it's not out of hierarchy. It's out of organization. So everyone knows who you're talking to. So it's like, if you are on the line and you're like, okay, hey, chef. And then the person at Expo knows, hey, what's up? How many of these do I have all day? Oh, you got 4 reds all day. Okay, cool. 4. Thanks, chef. Cool. That's how I speak to Expo if I'm working pasta. If I'm working pasta and somebody's like, hey, chef, I'm like, I'm working pasta. Chef's over there. I'm Joe. You're Adrienne. Like, you know what I mean? Keep it simple.
Yeah. See, I come from a place where it is based on hierarchy. So if I'm a line cook and I'm talking to a sous chef, I say, yes, chef, when they tell me something. When the sous chef is talking to the person above them, they call them chef. And everybody calls the one person in charge because at the end of the day, the word chef literally translates to boss.
Right.
So I'm here in France right now. So I'm at the grocery store or at the frickin' pharmacy, and there's a kid asking his boss where a product is for a customer. And he says, chef. And I instinctually turn around and realize I'm not in a restaurant. I'm not in a restaurant I have anything to do with. This kid is not talking to me. He's talking to his boss. And they say chef to one person to keep it that hierarchical structure.
Right. But I'm saying is like, again, that kind of proves my point of like why I don't like everyone calling everyone chef.
Right.
It's like one, learn each other's names, get to know each other. We spend a ton of time with each other, like know each other's names, talk to each other. It's like, because I've talked to people who have worked at those restaurants and they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, did you work with this person? They're like, oh, I'm not sure. It's like, yeah, because you don't even know each other's names because you're walking around like, chuff.
Okay.
It's just
feels overly formal and performative as opposed to like hierarchical at that point where I believe, yes, you address your chef de partie as chef, you address your sous and the CDC, everybody else is chef, but like,
I don't care.
I don't know.
I don't care about any of that. I don't care about that anyone needs to be called chef. I don't care if you don't call the Expo chef. I don't care if you don't call me chef when I'm expoing. If you say Joe, that works fine. Nobody needs to call me chef. Nobody needs to call anybody chef in my kitchens. I don't care. What I care is that when you ask for something, I know who you're talking to. Like that's my only thing with it. I don't care. Anybody who wants to be chef, fine. You want to call yourself chef? Great. You want everyone in your family to call you chef? I love it. You want your Instagram to be chef? That's fine. I am not going to gatekeep the title. I am just saying in service, when we are speaking to each other, I just want to know who you're talking to. I want to know if you're talking to me, if you're talking to JoJo, if you're talking to Christine, if you're talking to Anna, if you're talking to Trevor. I just want to know who the question is being asked to.
There was one thing that I found a little annoying or weird because they get so many of the details right on the show. When Carmy dropped the plate on the last lamb and they had to switch to the short ribs. Plate, beautiful, totally love it, looked amazing, love the contrast of the colors and the puree or the polenta.
Sure.
And the sauce was spot on, freaking gorgeous, looked like an incredibly well-made sauce there. I love that. But when Richie said with micro chives and they zoomed in on the top, I was like, no, those are some beautifully sliced chives and some parsley. It looked like it could have been a mix of like fiend herbs in there or something, but that was not micro chives. I was like, for them to get all the details so well described, I was really surprised at that.
See,
little thing.
That felt really real to me. You spend all this time and effort explaining everything to the front of the house, and then they go drop it off at the table, and they're like, and micro chives. And you're like, oh, it's not fucking micro chives. It's not fucking micro chives. But you know what I mean? But I always, and I will say, when we trade for the house, I always say, like, listen, if you're going to be wrong with confidence.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
You know what I mean? Like, if you look at that garnish on top of that plate and you can't remember if it's a chive, a chervil, a parsley, a tarragon, you pick yours and you walk right through that door.
Oh,
and
Joe, look at you naming all the fiend herbs, being all French.
I go, and you say it with confidence. You know what I mean? So it's like, that to me feels incredibly real. It was like, and micro chive. And you're just like,
cheers. Enjoy.
Cheers. Enjoy. Bon appetito.
I want to ask you, leadership style between Carmy and Sid. I love that Sid is coming into this leadership role. And it's not like Carmy was really shaping her or training her to become the exec chef. She was just kind of learning what not to do from him. Mm-hmm. But as an up-and-coming CDC to exec chef, what did you think about Sydney's leadership style?
I think it's exactly that of a person who was not given that by the person ahead of them. And like a lot of us learn that way, right? We learned so much of coming up from what not to do from people we worked for. We learn a lot about what not to do based on their leadership style. And I think like the Sydney character sometimes is super frustrating to me because it's one of those people where I just want to be like, all right, before you go and talk to them, what are you going to say?
Right.
Like, I feel like that's every time she speaks, I just want to pull her aside a bit before you go and talk to them.
Yep.
What are you going to say right now? Say to me, give it one practice run. Now go up there and deliver. It's like one of those, like those people I think like, for me, where it's like, she's a person who like, if she was in the kitchen, that I can work with all day. Like, I will turn that person into a monster because like they have all the skills, they have the right mindset, they're cool, they're calm, collected, but like they just need that, like what we all needed, that polish, right? So I think one of the really interesting things that this last season captures is the whole thing we've kind of talked about, that idea of chefs going from lowercase c to bigger case c, right?
Yeah, that's what Gail Simmons was talking about.
Right. And I think one of the aspects of it is the idea of like where you're living in the shadow of someone else. Sydney's living in the shadow of Carmy the whole time, and he's this big chef, and she's taking over. And as you step out of that shadow, you're also stepping out of the shade. And you see it instantly. Right. You know what I mean? Everything is falling on her. And it's not just the like, oh, every decision is yours now. It's every problem is yours now. And that's like the biggest thing, where it's like I've had that conversation a lot of times with friends. As much as you're not in that shadow, you are sure as shit not in that shade anymore.
Right. Some chefs can handle that stress and some chefs cannot. And that's what we're seeing in this very different management style from Carmy and the way he managed the team and the restaurant to the way Sid is managing. It's very different. Like it reminds me of, I was a sous chef coming up to like senior sous at Le Bernardin, and Adam Plitt was the CDC at Le Bernardin. And he gave me probably one of the best pieces of advice. One day, everybody was coming to me at the pass. Sous chefs are coming to me. Chefs de partie are coming to me. Waiters, captains, pastry. Everybody is coming with something. The cleaning staff was like coming with questions about stuff. Dishwashers are out of supplies. And I'm a go-to person. And Adam stood behind me one day, wiping plates next to me. And he was like, eat the stress. Everybody's going to put their stress on you. Everybody's going to ask you to solve their problems. You've got to be fucking hungry, and you have to eat that stress every time. You cannot freak out because you can't handle the stress. And so I went from being trained by his boss to be one of the chefs who freaked out, and Adam telling me, do not freak out. You're a calm, level-headed person. If you need to take a second before you answer the question, take that second. But when you answer, be decisive and tell them what's going to go. So seeing Sydney, I was like, oh my God, that was like me coming up the ranks as a sous chef to exec sous. But it was the way she would answer questions sometimes was a little unsure and a little uncertain. And I was like, I feel like at this point in her career, she would have been a little stronger in the way she worded things. And I started to see that from her the closer we got to the last episode. Like she was getting stronger and stronger in her leadership. And that was, to me, very realistic.
Yeah. Well, okay. One other thing I wanted to ask you about then, and I don't know if you noticed this. Sydney goes out, she drops a plate at the table, right? And she's like talking to two guests, and they're like, they say something like, tell the chef what a wonderful experience we have, which is a curious statement on many levels. In real life, you could say, give them the benefit of the doubt. Everybody's dressed the same. You have no idea what anyone does. When I'm behind the line and there's people at the chef's counters, I have people ask me all the time, how long have you worked here? So, you know what I mean? Like, people don't know who people are. People are all dressed the same. It could be confusing. Or do you think this was like a purposeful, like, little Easter egg in there of them being like, oh, tell the chef this is awesome, thinking like she can't possibly be the chef because she's a woman, she's a person of color, she's, you know what I mean, whatever, she's super young, you know what I mean, like any pick a lane of like why she's not the chef, you know what I mean, she's checking all the boxes of, you know what I mean, what people, you know,
but it
idiots
never
don't
even
think
occurred to them to ask if she was the chef. And she mentioned, like, we make these dishes together, but I'll let him know. And so I know exactly what you're talking about because they passed over it really quickly. They didn't show her with an emotional reaction. And I've even seen like New York Times and Eater and other outlets cover it with the perspective of she got to see firsthand how much the guests were enjoying her food. And yes, but there was that little nugget in there that if you know, you know.
And do you think that was purposeful? Do you think that was that? Or was it just for her to like get the POV of...
No, I think it was absolutely purposeful to have her out there, needed hands, there's nobody available to run the dishes. And she's like, I'll take them to the table. I've done that before. And it brought me right back. I mean, literally one day running the kitchen at Le Bernardin, I was the only chef on the pass. The CDC was not there. The exec chef was not there. I was exec sous and I was there. I'm expediting first, second, and entree line. So I'm expediting the whole entire line. We've got our last 10 tickets of the night on the board, and a table is getting walked into the kitchen, and there's like maybe 12 feet before you reach the pass. And I can hear this couple talking to the maitre d', Ben Chacroon, saying, thanks so much for walking us back. We just want to tell the chef what a wonderful time we had and that we really enjoyed it. And they're coming into my view as they're saying this. I'm standing there, blue baseball cap on, wiping plates, tempting the fish with the little, cake tester. And everybody else has on white paper hats, right? That's the only way at LB you can tell who's like upper management and lower is white hat, blue hat, or no hat. And so these people are walking up, and as they're coming up to the pass, there's a guy from Brighton Beach Brooklyn who has worked at Le Bernardin for all of 2.5 months at the time, but he is walking a plate from Garde Manger up to me at the pass, and he says, striped bass tartare, chef. And I take a piece out, I'm tasting, I'm wiping the plate. This kid is heading back to Garde Manger. The couple comes over and reaches across the pass to shake his hand and say, chef, thank you. So they reach over me to shake his hand because he's like 6'2", and I'm barely clearing the pass. Like I'm not much taller than the rail above the pass. And they reach over me to shake his hand and say, chef, thank you so much. We had such an incredible meal. This was amazing. He's like, oh, yeah, no problem.
Anytime.
Glad you enjoyed. And then he just starts laughing. It's one of those things that if you know, you know, because it doesn't, sometimes gender plays a role, race plays a role. At the time, I was the only woman at the kitchen at that time of night. I was the only Black person. If you're not tall, white, male, and have tattoos, you don't fit their stereotype of an image of what a chef looks like. And it's just because that's been what's portrayed for so long in our industry and about our industry. So I think that the Bear has done such a good job of showing the people like Marcus, showing the people like Sydney, like Tina, like me, who have been in this industry for decades,
who are everywhere,
but don't
this
fit
industry.
the stereotype. But we're not the stereotype when people who don't work in the industry think of it. They don't think of us. And so I really think that was 100% on purpose to address that subversively. They did it quickly and kept it moving. But I think that was like a subtle nod. I think there's so much smart stuff in the Bear that I'm hard pressed to think they didn't do that on purpose. Like the symbolism
I hope they did. You know what I mean? I hope it was that thoughtful. You know what I mean? I was just curious. I was like, man, that's like a deep cut.
And I saw that similar to how I saw like the cigarette butts circling the drain. It was like, first of all, the clock ran out. And then all the past mistakes and past behavior are catching up until everything explodes like a powder keg. And that, to me, it's like there was so much symbolism this whole season that I believe 100% that was on purpose. Yeah. So, that's like, there's so much about the Bear that are little deep cuts and nuggets for people in the industry, but also people outside of the industry. And I kind of see this show as being a really strong defining show for restaurant culture. Like, how do you see it and its place in the importance of it? Like what Top Chef did for, bringing creativity and pressure, do you see this as defining restaurants?
No. I think it's an awesome show. I think it's really good. I think it's really fun. I think it gets people really excited about it. But it's like, you know what I mean? If we're talking about defining shows that in our industry like changed everything, you know what I mean? Top Chef fits that bill. The old school Iron Chef fits that bill.
Right.
The Bourdain No Reservations. You know what I mean?
But those shows don't show restaurant life and culture.
They don't. I'm not saying they do. But those are defining because they're real. This isn't real. So that's why it's hard to say it's like defining, because it's like, I mean, it's really good. It's a really good view into it. So maybe it is. I don't know. I think it's hard to tell.
It could be one of those things that we won't know until a couple years after.
I think the difference is because it's, to be a piece of fiction, it's not like required reading. Where I think some of that older stuff you go back and watch and it gives you perspective. And I think like as somebody coming up in the industry, I think if you want to understand the industry a little bit more, you could watch this show, kind of get a POV of it. Right? I guess time will tell. And but I think it was really good. I think it was really fun. And I think anything that gets people super excited about our industry is a win for us in general.
Right.
Even for the overzealous chef guests that come in, it's still really fun. Or who want to say they're like, oh, say behind. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah. I liked the ending. I felt like it wrapped it up. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. I'm okay with that. I think the show did a really good job of wrapping it up, and I'm okay with where everything landed. How do you feel so far about the ending?
Yeah, I think they did a pretty good job. Like, you know what I mean, of wrapping it up. But I think families are always weird because there's no, especially a show if you really, really like it, right? Like, they end it. So I think they did a pretty good job of like, much like a tasting menu. You have something you really enjoy, but it leaves you wanting just that little bite more, right? Like it's not so much you're stuffed, but you want just that one little bite more. So I think they did a good job with that. Like I think it was like a nice, like the 2-star things, and it's like, and endings are always cheesy. It's always kind of cheesy, and it was kind of cheesy, and like now he's going to be an architect, and that whatever, like that's crazy. But you know what I mean? Like that part to me is like, all right, just like, you know what I mean? I felt like they had to give people something of Carmy not in a kitchen.
Just to show how awkward we are in real life when we leave restaurants.
Right. I wish it would have been, he would have been interviewing as a sales rep or as a private chef. It would have been better.
Hey, he could hand out Michelin plaques for the people that he sells his Cisco products to.
That's what I'm saying. That would have been electric.
You know what? So I was clearly wrong about Carmy going into private work, or maybe not. Maybe, in future Carmy will go to private work.
And the spinoff Carmy and the Hamptons.
Right.
It's like Real Housewives meets the Bear.
I feel like in his interview at the architectural firm, it was like a therapy session. He was venting as much as reminding himself about why he loved cooking and what he loved about creating and the artistry of it and the beauty. So I feel like Sydney told him there will always be a place for him at the Bear. So I don't know. Maybe he'll be creative director because remember, they're going to be franchising and doing the ghost kitchens of the beef.
That's right.
So maybe he'll come as like the culinary director of that. Over the broader company.
You think the spinoff is just private equity ruining the Bear?
Private equity ruining Italian beef. We need more volume. All right. Well, Joe, this has been a blast wrapping up the final season of The Bear. R.I.P. I'm going to miss it.
I know. Now what are people going to ask us about when they come in? So
Wild.
What will be the next great cooking show?
I have a feeling it will live on for a while, though.
Yeah, I think so.
That is it for this episode of The Chef's Cut. Head to the comments to share your thoughts on the final season of The Bear. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on IG. For Joe Flamm, I'm Adrienne Cheatham, and this has been The Chef's Cut. Life beyond the pass.